And welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Feels like we've made Buck Showalter like a annual visit here on the show to get his insights on what's going on in Major League Baseball. Of course, he's been fantastic to us through the years. I personally am still waiting to get Buck back there in the dugout. I think that's going to happen again, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe we'll get Buck's thoughts on that at some point. But first, I would love his thoughts on the first 10 days or so, or 7 days of so, of the Major League Baseball season. Buck, great to have you back here on the show once again. Thanks for making some time for us.
Hi, Craig. Nobody's that busy. Oh my gosh, let me see if I can work it in my schedule. We're not that important, but no, it's fun talking to you guys. Hey, we're talking baseball, right? So, the season started.
Yeah, it definitely has. I love your insights on that. So, I'm very hesitant. Don Mattingly taught me a long time ago to be very careful on April. I was with Donnie for a long time with the Marlins, of course, and he would always tell me, Craig, don't go crazy out there. Don't say anything nuts because April will make you look really foolish if you throw some things out there that are not really going to be sustainable over the course of the season. So we're about a week in. Here's what I'm seeing, Buck. I'm seeing a lot of runs being scored. I'm seeing this new park in Sacramento, a lot of runs being scored there, more home runs, a lot of velocity chasing as well. I don't know if I missed anything there, but at least that's my initial thought. I generally don't see 15, 20 run games in the first week of April. I feel like there's been a lot thus far.
Well, I think 20, 30 years from now, if you're trying to project what ballparks are going to look like, you know you're being old. You know you're old when ballparks you remember as new are being torn down. That's where I am in my life. Some of them on their third, Texas on their third stadium. But I think you're going to see people cover their fields and not let the elements affect it. We all know it rains at 4 o'clock every afternoon. It seems like in Florida, so you better have a good indoor cage in Tampa. Sacramento with the elevation. I was in Utah, and Salt Lake City's being talked about as a possible
Mm-hmm.
expansion or relocation, and I don't think people realize that it's not too far behind Colorado. That ballpark will be very conducive to offense. And the top three elevations are Colorado, Arizona, and a lot of people don't know Atlanta. That's why they call it the launching pad. So the elevation plays a lot into how you put the club together. But I think with Sacramento, it's we see all these trends. I've always gone by the adage that never judge a player in the spring or the fall. You judge them over a track record. The first thing I look at when I look at stats of a player when I think about acquiring them is I look at games played. Can they
Mm-hmm.
post up? Can they play? With off days and load management and all the things going on, the guys that can post up, that's what's so valuable about Lindor. He plays 155, 160 games, so you can count on it. His 90% is better than the 100% of the guy you replace him with. But it'll be interesting to see how the Dodgers and the Braves play out in the long haul. But that's what's different, Craig, is we play a sport every day for 7 or 8 months to roll the dice in October. And I think October is more of a roll of dice than ever before. But I just think that you gotta trust the length of the season and play the long game while people around you in full panic mode.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I went into the season. And a lot of people were asking me, we'll go to the Dodgers here. A lot of people asking about the Dodgers. And I was a little bit effusive with it. I was like, come on, there's no super teams anymore. I know they're really good and they're going to win 100, but, in the end, they're not going to win 120 games. No one does that. 115, no one does that. I mean, Seattle had that incredible year several years ago. But Buck, I gotta tell you, man, like I'm sort of regretting that a little bit here, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But they're finding different ways to win every single night. This is as close to a super team as we have seen. I don't know that we will see one in a couple of years with the new CBA coming, which is a story for another day here. But Otani on Thursday, hits that walk-off shot. Their pitchers just throw 5 innings, and then they got these guys throwing sweepers and sliders at 98, 99, and they don't even need their guys to go deep into the game. Uh, is this as close to a super baseball team as we've seen in a while? I'm a little scared to see these outcomes here.
Well, 7 games into the season, but the thing that would scare me if I was the opposition, not scared, would make me go, wow, this may play out, is their depth. The quality GMs are always saying, what if? What if Otani goes down all year? What if Freeman goes down all year? We used to say J.J. Hardy in Baltimore breaks his leg in spring training. What are we going to do? Because the season doesn't stop, and they don't. The other teams don't allow you to catch up until your player comes back. But what is challenging, because you're going to have some issues along the way, is their depth and their rotation, their bullpen. That one would get my attention. I'm like, they are so deep. They're going to be able to sustain something. There are teams that are built like that Mariner team. You remember they were built for the regular season. There's really four times you manage as a manager. You manage in the spring, you manage in the regular season, you manage in September baseball. That's a different cat, and then you manage in the postseason. There's four different approaches, and unfortunately for the opposition, I think they're a team that's going to be able to stand all four of those quadrants.
All right, and so Buck, now on the flip side, let's go to the Braves here, who had a pretty quiet offseason, but they did extend a bunch of their players a couple of years ago. I know they'll get back Strider and they'll get back Ronald Acuna Jr. And you certainly saw your fair share of them when you were the manager of the Mets. No teams ever made the postseason. I was shocked to see that after starting 0-7. Braves rebound, Buck, in your mind?
I wouldn't bet against them. If I was a betting man, I would bet for them. I just think they've got a nice calming influence with their manager, and a guy that's been. When I look at managers, I look at their path. The managers that have a path of experience in the minor leagues and winter ball and instructional league and different things that have actually been through the ups and downs of the season. I think Snicker does that very well, and they're going to get. The cavalry's coming there. Their catcher went out on rehab, Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be okay. Nobody wants to start out 0-7 and have to answer all those questions. But if you look at the pure percentage of what part of the season 7 games is, I would not bet against them. Just like I wouldn't bet against the Dodgers sustaining a really top flight season.
All right, I would agree. Buck, always great to catch up with you. We'll look forward to catching you on the television and also, I hope, at some point back in the dugout. Thanks again for coming on.